Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked, where we break down what it takes to build a thriving travel business. Here's your host, co-founder of Gifted Travel Network and best-selling author, Meredith Calloway.
Hello, and welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked podcast. I am your host, Meredith Calloway. On today's episode, we have a guest who has a list of accolades. So I'm very, very excited to introduce Robin Cline of Cline Co Travel Consulting. She is, first of all, and most heartwarming to me, she is a graduate of our Travel MBA program. She is also frequent or multi-member of our Top Producers Club, repeat member. She's also a Condé Nast Traveler Top Travel Specialist. She is a member of Virtuoso's Ultra Luxe community, which is very selective, and that is not easy to get into, as well as some other communities. And she's also just a really, really cool person. So welcome to the podcast, Robin. Thanks for joining.
Well, thank you. And thank you for that intro. Wow, that sounded really good.
Right? Wouldn't you like it if we could do that for you every day?
Yeah,
absolutely. Walk into the office. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I need to put a sign up in my office that says all those things when I walk in every day.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is going to be a great episode. So let's begin with your journey. I know that you went through our Travel MBA program during 2020. Which is, the year that a lot of people would like to forget. So what inspired you to make a career change in the midst of a pandemic?
Well, first, let me say, respond to what you said, a lot of people would like to forget. And I think we all felt that way, I think, right after it. But in hindsight, looking back on it now, it was a really valuable year.
I totally agree.
So I don't really look at it as one that I want to forget. At the time, I didn't want to live through it. But, like most things, when you come through the fire, you're better off for it. So the other thing is, luckily, I didn't decide to start it in the pandemic. I actually kind of pulled the trigger March 1st of 2020. And then about 2 weeks later is when everything started to collapse. And I remember my son, who was a senior in high school at the time, came home from school like the 14th of March, I think it was. And he said, school's canceled for 3 weeks. Yeah. And well, we all know what happened to 3 weeks. It became 3 months, became 6 months, and on and on. So first, I didn't make the decision during the midst of a pandemic, which is probably a good thing because I may not have made the same decision. But regardless, I'm glad I did, and very glad that the journey has taken me where it has.
Yeah. You said before we even started this recording, you said that you are a serial entrepreneur. So tell us about what background did you bring to this entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think I had a couple of small businesses that I had started. I always enjoyed working for myself. I have big visions. I don't always get them to come to fruition, but I've always been a real ideas person. And I would say the biggest, or not the biggest, but probably the business that defined, me and sort of my trajectory the best was I owned a high-end boarding kennel and training kennel, and I also bred Labrador retrievers. Oh, and cool. in through all of that, and then also prior to that, had been very involved in the thoroughbred horse industry. And so I'd been very fortunate to rub elbows and get to know a lot of people through both of those businesses that turned out to really be kind of my ideal clients. And not only, did I know them, I'd also learned a lot about their world, which I didn't live in. I don't live in now, but I understand it. So that helps, or I understand it to the degree that I can, I should say. So that really helps.
That is a really interesting perspective. So basically what you're saying is you were very well connected with certain high net worth, ultra high net worth people. And that helped you truly understand the psychology of how to be service forward in a business where you were selling travel. But it's really, when you get into the luxury market and you are now catering to the high net worth, the ultra high net worth, it truly becomes about service and trust. Correct?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and I think a good example of that is, I was fortunate when I was still very young in my early 20s, the first time to be invited to go to see by an owner of a horse to go and watch this horse race. And we took a private plane and then we got in a helicopter from there. And so
As you
by
do, right? Of
yeah,
course.
right. I mean, but it helped me understand. Okay, like before that, I didn't know what an FBO was or even what it stood for or anything like that.
Hmm.
So I started to learn about those things, and as I stayed in that industry longer and became more involved and had various jobs and different contacts with different people, I learned a lot more about all that. So that helps me kind of be able to speak the lingo, if you will, and understand what level of service people are looking
Hmm.
for.
So a lot of people, our industry or our profession is flooded, absolutely flooded with opportunities to become a travel advisor overnight
Yeah.
for a very low cost without a whole lot of business training.
Mhm.
And and that is why I believe there are so many people that fall into this accidental hobbyist trap, because they come into the business without a whole lot of clarity
Right.
on who their ideal client is. And I mean, I made those mistakes myself, so I can say it.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Wanting to be of service to anybody and everybody
Yeah.
that comes their way.
Yeah.
Did you fall into that trap ever, or were you already very clear when you first started that I want to sell luxury and I am going to be very focused on that?
I knew what my goals were, but there was also the reality of paying the bills.
Yeah.
So I had to balance, what I wanted to be doing and what my vision was, and ideally where I would ultimately be, with the reality of, okay, I've got kids in cars that need insurance. I've got a mortgage. I've got, groceries to buy, things like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like we're living hand to mouth. It wasn't
Right.
anything like that. But I am doing this for a living. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a passion too, but I'm not just doing it because I love travel. It was a
Hmm.
great business for me to get into because I do have a lot of passion about it, but I also have always treated it as a business from the very beginning. And having owned other businesses, I mean, I had a business plan. I understand what you have to do to cash flow,
Yeah.
understood expenses and overhead and things like that. So all those things just help me tremendously with it in getting it
So are you
started.
saying that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. So are you saying that when you first began, maybe in that first phase of the business, you were taking on clients that you wouldn't necessarily take on today?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've always had this feeling. I mean, I think that any kind of travel that you can do, you should try to do. I mean, if you can do it at the
Gives
highest
you
level,
experience.
great. If you can't, do what you can do, because there's no experience like it in the world. But yeah, I was taking on certainly some trips that didn't, for where I am now, financially make sense or particularly bring me a lot of joy, which in turn is not a service to the client. Like
Hmm.
if it's something that I'm not enjoying doing or am kind of working on begrudgingly, then I'm not putting my best foot forward for the client either. So I think that's important to think about. So it gave me a lot of incentive to really work toward cultivating those relationships, to work with the people that I wanted to work with and book the kind of travel. And shouldn't even say book. I mean, really create the kind of trips that
Yeah.
I wanted, I felt passionate about it, and thought where I would serve my clients best and also get the most satisfaction out of while earning a living.
Yeah. So considering that you have this very realistic outlook, which I love, I think it's refreshing, quite honestly. I'm curious why you chose to invest in a program like our Travel MBA program, which
Mhm,
is a significant investment,
mhm,
especially when compared to other training options
mhm,
in the industry. What drove that decision?
mhm. Well, interestingly enough, a friend of mine that I went to high school with, her sister is a travel advisor. And when I was thinking about going down this path, I talked to her and she said, oh, you should talk to my sister. So I did talk to her sister. And her sister said to me, you should check into Gifted Travel Network. She said, I've heard great things about them and I've heard they've got a great program to start with. And originally I was kind of like, yeah, I don't need that. I understand business. I don't
Well,
really need
especially
all
as
that.
someone who was a,
Yeah,
serial entrepreneur like you, right?
yeah. And so that was kind of my attitude, but luckily she said, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that you really don't know about yet. You don't know what you
Yes.
don't know.
Yes.
And so I listened to her and I made the call to GTN, and I did talk to some other
Mm-hmm.
host agencies as well. Just it made sense to me what was on offer, and I thought that training for we get the trip together and it's beautiful and everything else. Now how do I get paid?
Right. Yeah.
Those things, like all the steps you have to go through to actually get the money from that commission into your bank account,
Yeah.
and learning about travel insurance. I
Right.
mean, I'd always, gotten travel insurance, but I didn't really think much about it. The more I learned about it, the more I thought, oh, wow, I've got a lot to learn about this.
Yeah.
And, you know how it's that peeling back the onion, every layer is like, oh, okay, something more to learn, something more to learn, something more to
Yeah.
learn. So it just felt like a good fit with the training program that was offered at GTN, and then the support network was
Mm-hmm.
very important too. The
Yeah.
having people that were successful already in the business, and the mentorship, which several of the others don't do. They just say, okay, yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's the number, the IATA number, and have fun, make money.
Go at it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really glad I didn't choose one of those paths, because this has turned out to be a really good fit, and the training program was definitely well worth the time and the and the money, and I had a lot of time because of
Yeah.
COVID. Yes,
Yes.
I had a
Right.
ton
That's
of
true.
time to go through all of the training very thoroughly, and
Yeah.
be on all the calls. And so it was time really well spent. And I will say too, I had the luxury of not having to work as another job that year. I mean, I did some part-time stuff, but I didn't have to work, like, I wasn't doing a 9 to 5. I wasn't trying to
Yeah.
be a nurse and a travel agent, or a
Yeah.
school teacher and a travel
Yeah.
advisor, and something else. So that was definitely an advantage
You didn't
too.
have a distraction
Yeah.
of, the job, and have
Yeah.
one foot in one side of the fence and the other on the other side of the fence.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the focuses at the first part of our travel MBA program is developing a brand for yourself.
Mhm.
And you said you're very much an ideas person. So I would
Mhm.
imagine that part was really, really fun for you. And your branding is so well done. If anybody's listening, they can check out Robin's website, Cline Co Travel.com. It's gorgeous. It's well done. It oozes the messaging you want a luxury service to ooze. So talk to me about that process. Was it challenging? Was it fun? Did it take longer than you thought it was going to take? What hiccups did you bump into?
Well, I'll say this first. The website that you're seeing now literally just launched Monday. So that's
Wow.
all of 48 hours old. And
Wow.
every website previous to this one, I have not been happy with.
Okay.
So
Okay. I can relate to that.
the branding part of it was not hard. Like, I had a pretty clear vision of what I wanted it to look like, the kind of type I wanted, the kind of
Yeah.
colors I wanted. I'm very, you probably could tell, pretty straight to the point, so I didn't
Mhm.
want anything for me kind of fluffy or frilly, or, I didn't want a name that was sort of a play on words or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that. It's just not me.
Yeah.
It's not my personality. And I always knew that I would need and want a few other people, a support network that would be part of the team. So that's why I used the Anco. I also knew that if someday I wanted to pass it along or to sell it or whatever, that I wanted to have a name that lended itself to that, so that was how I came up with it. And it wasn't really hard. I mean, some of it is just out and out stealing. I mean, you look at something like Tiffany
Yeah.
and Co, or, I mean, there's a bunch of and Co's out there. And, but to me, it's clean, clear messaging, and there's nothing confusing. There's nothing confusing about my name as far as what you're getting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, we always say, or I've said this for many, many years, is like, when it comes to choosing the name, don't be cute, be clear. Just be clear. Don't be cute. Yeah. You want to avoid cute, especially if you're trying to sell luxury. You really want to be clear. So
I've seen some people go through some rebranding and like with your guidance too, and have heard people say several times, well, I think I've outgrown that. that. And I didn't want something that I would outgrow or feel like I just felt like I really, and having had the business experience I'd had in the past, I kind of had a good feel for that. Being older when I started the business too, more maturity and stuff. I think that helped that as well. I will say one thing, if I can, to anybody that's listening that is just starting out, don't get too wrapped up in a beautiful website. Like if I could do it all again, I would do just like a nice landing page to start with, that just basically is like, here I am, this is me, here's my photo, this is the contact information, here's the form you can fill out, whatever.
It's a bit of a digital business card nowadays, right?
Yeah, because I think I just tried so hard and I think I did 3 renditions of my website before I got to this one. And this is 6 years, which is ridiculous. Yeah. So,
but I love that vulnerability, right? Because it's just real. That's part of the process. That's entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
Especially being an ideas person.
Yeah, exactly.
Not always happy with the first round.
Right. Yeah.
But I also think over the last 6 years, the digital marketing space has changed so much.
Yeah, true.
So, I mean, look at what's happening with AI and how it's completely driving how and Meta and how Meta works is completely changing your digital marketing strategies. Yeah. And, the website is becoming less and less important. Specifically, SEO is becoming much less important. And it's much more important to be found on Meta and found on AI searches.
Hey, Travel Business Unpacked listeners, Meredith Calloway here. If you're enjoying the podcast, I've got something else I think you'll love. The book, The 7-Figure Travel Entrepreneur, is officially out now. It's all about building a business that's intentional, profitable, and actually sustainable, and leads to 6-figure earnings. And I've made the entire first chapter free for you. It's my way of saying thank you for listening and being a part of this community as you build your luxury travel business. You can download it now at giftedtravelnetwork.com/book. Now, let's get back to the episode.
So let's talk about building this book of business that you've built now. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't exactly what you wanted when you first started. You did take some business that you wouldn't take today. Mm-hmm. What would you say? But I know, like, I'm just reading the minds of the listeners right now. How did you build that book of business? Can you identify a couple of key things that were game changers for you in building it?
Yeah, I think really it is, it is the contacts. It is so much about the who you know, honestly. And some of them are many degrees of separation.
Right.
It might be, I knew somebody's brother who was a horse trainer, and his sister was talking about travel, and then she told her friend, well, her friend turned out to be somebody that wanted to do a, whatever, 50,000 trip to Europe, dollar trip to Europe, or, I'm making that up, but
yeah.
There were several of those kind of situations. And then the referrals are huge. I mean, I took advantage of that. I think something that I do well is I make an effort to see people in person that are local.
Oh,
And I have even done a little, like mini road trip with some of my clients that are not in the state, and gone and visited them, take them out to dinner, get to
yeah.
know them. I think it's really easy to get stuck into I only email, or, and I always try to, when I work with the clients the first time, get on a Zoom call and be face to face. So I think that helped a lot, just, in taking the time to really talk to people about, learn who their families are, kids, grandkids, whatever, their interests, things like that. And then you can work those things into trips that they
Yeah.
are not expecting. So I think that's how I leveraged it mostly, was, doing a good job with those people when I did get a trip. And then that became something that, was then a referral or a snowball. I have a lot of repeat clients that have just come back time after time, year after year. So I think that that's been key there.
I think it's key. However, I would also say that because you have such a great brand, and you were thoughtful about it, but you also followed direction when it came to your branding. I think once you showed up with this branding already in place,
Yeah.
You just have a sense of confidence, and it gives the prospect a sense of confidence.
Yeah.
That, oh, I'm working with someone who's legit here.
Right. Right. Well, and I think that, one part of the program, the Travel MBA program, was, we were advised to send out a letter and just say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and it's not really asking for business, but just saying, here I am, this is what I'm doing. I'm taking this new career path, this new direction in life. And, I definitely got a couple calls off of that from people that, I'll never forget. One of them was like, oh my gosh, this couldn't have arrived at a better time. We're doing this trip. We want to do this trip to wherever, and we don't know what to do. Can you help us? So, I think that was really valuable advice, which I followed.
Yes.
And like you said, the branding was ready. It was all on the letterhead. It was with the business cards in it. It was all professionally done. It didn't look like it had been run off my, little tiny inkjet printer in my, that's been dust covered for 25 years kind of thing. So it makes that first impression is important.
And one thing that I've said on this podcast before, and it always makes me, I'm in awe of it because it really just does work, is if you do the branding right and you do it up front and you really invest in a great brand, then you can really take your gas pedal off the marketing efforts down the road, because the referrals and the repeat business just keep it going.
Yeah.
Did you find that with your business?
Oh, for sure. And I think that, the other thing about that too is that's one of the places I think that it's important to be careful if you take on a lot of trips that are not in your niche, that are not what you want to be doing, because what's going to happen is you're going to get referrals from people. If you do a good job on those, you're going to get referrals from people, and all of a sudden you're going to be doing all kinds of honeymoons to the Caribbean, and you don't even like the Caribbean or honeymoons. So I think that was really important, was as soon as I could say no to those things, I did. And in a way of explaining that I wouldn't serve them well because it wasn't my niche, my expertise, the best place, that they could be better served with somebody else, not by just saying, oh, I don't do that.
Yeah. I'm going to read on your homepage. It says, where extraordinary journeys meet unparalleled expertise, a travel consultancy reserved for those who value personalized experiences, rare access, and discretion. Oh my God. So well said. Did you come up with that languaging, or did you get help with that?
Yeah, I got some help, for sure.
Well done.
Know where I got it? Well, okay. I think this is a good segue into talking about
Yeah.
AI, because AI
Okay.
did
Yeah.
help me with that. Okay. And
Yeah.
that's where I think that AI is great in our industry
Yes.
and in a lot of places. But you have to feed it the information,
Yes.
and you have to continue to
Absolutely.
edit it. And when it spits something out to you, you have to say, yeah, that word's not quite right. And you have to do a lot of back and forth with the AI. You can't just put something in and then take
No.
whatever it gives you.
Yeah.
And so I did work on that, but it is me putting in probably a lot of words that didn't come out in that way, but
Yes.
that was the end result I wanted. So
Because it's succinct, but it's powerful. And that's exactly what I have found too with AI. I mean, I discovered this in the process of writing the book, The 7-Figure Travel Entrepreneur, that when it's actually an interesting story where I hired someone to help me write the book, and his process was to do a 2-hour video interview of me, where I prompt him with questions, and then he asks the questions on the video, I answer them, and then he has AI create a chapter out of it. And when we first started this process, the very first chapter I loved. And then every chapter after that, I was like, I can't stand this. This is awful. This is horrible. This is not me. This is not how I want it to go. And so I had to scrap that whole process. I bailed on it, quite frankly, and decided to create my own process where I would wake up every single morning an hour early and just write for an hour. And that's it, without any end goal in that hour, just to write. I did have some kind of an outline. And so I worked on it chapter by chapter. I gave myself 3 months and ended up taking more like 5. But then I would take the whole chapter and feed it to AI and get it to edit it for me in my own voice. And so I totally agree with you that AI can be an incredibly, and so how I see AI is, it just shortcuts a process. I don't know if I ever would have gotten to publishing, because the editing part is so painstakingly boring for me.
Yeah. Well, there's things that I've hired somebody now to do them, because I'm like, this is going to suck the life out of me, and it's going to make me not like what I do. So I hire somebody to do that part. So, I get that, you can't be like the best at every aspect of, your job. And it's, it's like kids in school, we expect them to excel in every single subject, and it's like, no, we're not made like that, so.
So you're definitely a rare success case. And I don't mean that amongst our travel MBAers. I'm just saying in the arena of travel advisors, people who get into, but you did things that most people who get into the industry don't do. Like, you invested in yourself, you put skin in the game from the very beginning. And actually, what you said about you, very much on your agenda, was to be able to support yourself. Like, this is not just a hobby. This is not just fluff either. So that's also a form of putting skin in the game, is knowing that you actually need to support yourself on this investment of time. So
if I can interrupt you one second, I think there's one more thing in there that's really key, that having owned the businesses, especially that kennel business that I did before, is important to apply here. Is I understood the value of hiring. And I hear a lot of people that start in this and they say, oh, I can't trust anybody else to do this. I couldn't possibly let anybody else do this. I have to do it all. And I'm like, well, there's only so many hours in the day, and you do have to sleep and eat and hopefully have a social life. You will limit yourself. Or most people will, not everybody, but most people will limit themselves if they're afraid to pass some things on.
Absolutely.
And so I had a very clear vision that as soon as I could get out of the day-to-day and the things
Mm-hmm.
that aren't actually bringing income in, that those things are the ones that I needed to step away from
Wow.
and be, the face. I needed to be doing the itineraries, working with the clients, all of that. So
Yes.
my business model is, kind of the minute the trip is deposited, and I tell people this on our very first call. Once this trip is deposited, you are going to hear from my two assistants way more than you're ever going to
Yes.
hear from me. I'm going to see the emails. I'm going to be there. I'm going to know what's
Yeah.
going on, but you're not going to be hearing from me about what time you want dinner or, what time does the ride show up or things like that, because I don't put it that way, but I'm on to the next trip and I'm bringing more income in so they can continue to have their jobs. I can continue to be satisfied with my job. And, I think that's really, really important, is to, if you want to scale, you've got to hire.
Yes. I love that. And oh my goodness, do we hear objections to hiring?
Oh yeah.
So many objections. Exactly the one you said. No one can do it as good as I can.
Well, and it's
I
not
don't
that,
have the money.
and it's not that nobody can do it as good. It's just maybe nobody's going to do it the same way.
Yeah. True.
I think a lot
Yeah.
of people get stuck into it has to be done exactly how, like, I wouldn't have used that word in this email or something.
Yeah.
And, it's just, you just have to make the decision. Do you want to let that stuff go? Or do you
Yeah.
want to, pick the hill you want to die on,
So
I'm not going to die on the hill of we should have used, this instead of that or whatever. So, that's just me.
Yeah.
But I think that going back to, before I went down this rabbit hole, a lot of the success that I've had as quickly as I have had it is because I've been very willing to say, okay, that's yours. You take that,
Yeah.
you do that, you go on, and it's worked really well.
Which comes from past experience as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
not necessarily a travel entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur.
Correct.
So you've already learned that lesson in a prior entrepreneurial endeavor. So talk to us about the team structure, because I think a lot of people, they hear build a team and they're thinking, oh, so you hired ICs that are selling travel themselves. But I don't think that's what you're talking about. So talk to us about your team structure.
Yeah. So the first thing I did is, because I don't love social media as far as posting. Like, I love looking at it and stuff, but I don't like doing the posts. So that was actually the very first thing I did, was I hired somebody to help me with that. And that was great.
Did you outsource that, or you actually hired someone who's
as a 1099?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hourly.
A 1099, but not like a social media posting service company.
No, it was somebody that I knew here locally, and she is now my right-hand person. So she's now been with me for almost 6 years, but her position has changed. So now somebody else is doing the social media and the social media thing. I think it helped, and I think it still does help in terms of, it's just visibility. But I'm not looking at it as a tool to really bring business in, but it's just reminding people you're there, staying top of mind, inspiration, giving people, thoughts of, oh yeah, maybe I would like to go there. Sometimes it gives them confidence in a destination they wouldn't have thought of before. Correct. So that's what she originally started doing, because obviously there wasn't a lot of travel being booked. So, she was helping me with that she'd post a couple times a week. And then when things started to get busy, she started to help me out a little bit, because I learned very quickly that I was allergic to client base. And I was like, this is going to ruin my career if I have to deal with this program. And so I hired her to do that, and she put everything in client base for me. And then, she started assisting me with like travel insurance, like getting travel insurance quotes together. And then she started doing some things like chasing commissions for me. And then, I mean, it just one thing became another to another to another. And now she works probably 15-ish hours a week right now. She's got 2 young kids. And, once they're in school, I think she'll probably come on as an employee. So she's kind of my, right hand and does all the, I'd say, back office stuff. She tracks the commissions, she puts the commissions in, everything in now that we have Sion, which is a godsend. So she does that. She does the travel insurance. She does a lot of communicating with clients when they have questions about travel insurance and all of these things. So she does a lot of that. And then the other person that works on a regular basis for me, she does all the itineraries. She puts everything into turn when we're ready to do that with the itineraries. She's the client care specialist. Yes. She takes care of the dinner reservations, making sure all the transfers are confirmed, making sure the seats on the plane are in the right place and the record locator numbers are right and the frequent flyer numbers are applied. Yes. And she loves a checklist. She's all about checking those things off, which makes me want to just blow my brains out.
Yes.
So I'm like, and I know where I'm good is on the front end. Like, I'm really good at the creative part of it. Like, when somebody comes to me and starts talking about a trip, I mean, immediately my mind is going. And I love doing puzzles too. And I liken it to that. Like, I liken it to throwing a puzzle out on the table and like, okay, we're going to divide, these colors up here. We're going to get the edges put together. And then once it's all done and it's so beautiful, I'm going to walk away from it. But those two are going to take it from there and make sure it gets whatever framed or matted or displayed or whatever. They're going to do all that stuff, because once the puzzle's done, I'm kind of like, ready for the next one. So that's what they do. And we work together beautifully. They've both been with me for a long time. Gabby's been with me 3 years now, and Mallory for almost 6. And then we have a new person that's doing social media, and she's fantastic. And like I said, they're all 1099s, but I think also we make a really good team. I have everybody get together once a year. Gabby is remote and she's in Houston. So I fly her up here once a year. We have a few days together.
Oh, that's great.
Working together and we do like a big spa day together. Nice. And just it helps having that relationship, and everybody has their freedoms as far as when they work. So that's the thing. And my social media person is now doing my newsletter as well. Not the whole thing. Like, she puts it all together. I go look at it. I tweak what I want to tweak, or change pictures or whatever it is that needs to be done, and then it goes. So all these things that were pain points for me, really aren't anymore. I just kind of am keeping track to make sure they're done, but I don't even need to do that because they all do a great job. So that's the team, a long-winded version of what my team is.
No, it's not long-winded. But I'm impressed with how clear it is, and you've definitely got support in the right places. Yeah. I think the client experience manager is so important to hire that and get that done as soon as you really, we recommend it when you're in phase 3, which is $600,000 to $1 million in sales. And there, so many people are like, I can't afford to pay someone yet. I've still got to grow the business before I can afford to pay someone. And we say you can't afford not to, because the business isn't going to grow if you don't do that. So,
and then it's also a question of, can you afford to, if it drives you crazy, can you afford to lose your sanity or lose your passion for what you do?
Yeah.
And that absolutely would have happened to me. If I had to keep doing those things, I would have gotten burnt out and mad and not enjoyed it. And then I would have been kind of backed in this corner of, I got to make a living and I hate doing this. And, it wouldn't have been a good place to be. So I think that hiring also needs to be where your pain points are. You need to hire somebody to do things that you really, really don't like doing. And that just gives you a lot more space for the things you do love doing.
So let's talk about, I actually just interviewed yesterday, and this by the time this airs, this might already be an episode that's available to listen. Jennifer Jacob with Teak HQ.
Oh, Yeah.
And so we were talking a lot about workflows.
Yeah.
Did you put workflows into place yourself? Did you design them yourself? Or did you let maybe one of those people that you hired really take the lead on that? Especially knowing that when you are servicing a high net worth or ultra high net worth client, they expect a certain level of professionalism, a lot of communication.
Yeah, I did not create them because
Okay.
that would have made me insane. I bought them and then I
Yeah.
tweaked them. And
Nice.
then what we do is we actually tweak them every year in
Yep.
January. We change them up a little bit.
That's
We're
great.
constantly doing a little bit of improving on them, and reference Mallory, and she
Yep.
kind of takes the lead on that now. She's like, I think we need to, freshen these up again, and we
Yep.
need to look at this, and maybe we
That's
should
great.
change that. And I don't think that for us, it would have been a mistake to say, okay, these are our workflows and these will always be our workflows.
Yeah.
We have, they need to evolve and change with you, as does the terminology that you use. I mean, I'd say a good example is just recently we've had to institute some changes that I'm not crazy about, but we've just had to do it because these codes that credit cards are generating now has gotten so insane, which I understand. It's a good thing. It protects us all.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes trying to get like dinner reservations done, or if we're trying to buy like tickets to whatever, or a meal that has to be paid for in advance or things like that, like we've just had to start saying, if there's a code that's going to be generated or something like that, I'm sorry, we just cannot help, because it is just too much of a problem to go back and forth. We'll send people the link sometime and be like,
Yep.
I'm sorry, but you're going to have to handle this one. So that's a change.
Yes.
Our old workflow said, we'll take care of your reservations. We've had to institute some much stricter rules about, if you haven't given us your dinner reservation choices by X date, we're out.
Yeah, we're out.
Yeah,
we can't do this at the last minute.
Exactly. Because then it's like, well, that's not available. That's not available. That's not
Yeah.
available. The next thing you know, you're running around with your hair on fire trying to find a restaurant that's available because somebody didn't listen or see your email or read your email.
Yep.
Or whatever.
I
So,
love that.
so those are the things with the workflows. And then talking about Teak, we use ClickUp for our communication.
Okay.
And our task lists and all of that. And I bought the ClickUp like kit from Teak, and it was fabulous. And it's really helped. Now, we did build some stuff in there of our own too, for our trips and our checklists and all of those things, but it was really helpful to get that from them too.
Okay.
And it's money really well spent. It's not a lot of money when you compare it. I mean, if you look at what your hourly rate should be, and then you look at the cost of one of these workflows or something that gives you everything and all you have to do is tweak it, it's like a deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. It's so worth it. And there's so many benefits because it frees you up. It also helps in the training side. I love that you said every single year you look at those workflows and you freshen them up. That is so important, that you don't just let them sit and forget about them, set and forget. And I think it speaks to the leader that you are, that you've really stepped into of your business. I feel like you kind of understood that role from day one. And that's one of the things that probably has helped you be so successful.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of success, our mission at GTN is not to just help people build 7-figure businesses, but to also build a life that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to have a life you love if you're worrying about things like that.
Right.
And you haven't hired and you are having to do it all. But we're over 45 minutes. I can't believe it. So my segue to my favorite question of the each episode is, part of living a life that you love is getting to have these pinch me, oh my God, I can't believe I get to do this for a living moments. So do you want to talk about one of your favorite pinch me, oh my gosh, I can't believe I get to do this for a living moments?
I mean, I think that anytime I get to do a trip for somebody that is in my wheelhouse, where my heart is.
Yeah.
And which, for me, it's things like horseback safaris,
Yeah.
hunting and fishing trips, expedition things,
Yeah.
So anytime I get to do trips like that, that's absolutely, falls into that category. And there's been a couple of very special trips, like family trips. We did one last summer for a family of 18 that went to Fiji for this woman's 80th birthday. Like, she had everybody in her family go. And even though, Fiji's not like the be all end all in terms of what my niche is, it was just so, it meant so much to me to be able to help them do that. And another one that was similar to that, which was Egypt and Jordan for a family, and grandma got to take her grandkids and her kids, and just happy tears the whole trip. And so so those are the ones that are
come to
kind
mind.
of I mean, the high dollar ones are really nice, but I wouldn't say that they're the ones that stick with me as much as the ones that are emotionally important.
So you know what I love about your answer there is that most people, and myself included, if I were asked this question, would answer with a trip that they got to do themselves. Because and you know what I love is that, like, you are so clearly coming from the heart.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that's why you're so successful.
Uh-huh.
I think that's why your clients love you. And I think that's why you're still doing it, because it's fulfilling, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it is. I
found
mean,
your
it's
sweet spot.
I mean, it's great to be your own boss and
Yeah.
set your own hours. I mean, sometimes my hours are 12 hours a day, but
Yeah.
other times they're not, and I have that flexibility, so it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your story, letting us unpack Robin Cline, Cline Co Travel Consulting. It was a great episode, and I hope someone listening has been inspired today. And for those of you listening, thank you for being here, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.